The Haunting of Hollow Grove. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a blood-red hue across the dense forest of Hollow Grove. Among the trees, a winding path led deeper into the heart of darkness, where an eerie stillness hung heavy in the air. Those who lived nearby knew better than to enter this cursed place, but the curious, the brave, and the foolish were often drawn to its mysteries. It was in the nearby town of Blackwood that whispers of the forest's malevolence were the loudest. For generations, the townsfolk had passed down tales of Hollow Grove, stories of souls lost to its depths, never to return. There were those who believed it was cursed, haunted by restless spirits, while others dismissed it as mere folklore. Among the skeptics was Sarah, a young woman with an insatiable appetite for adventure and a desire to debunk the supernatural. She scoffed at the legends and decided to spend a night in Hollow Grove, armed with a flashlight, a camping tent, and a stubborn determination to prove that it was all superstition. As Sarah ventured into the forest, the darkness closed in around her like a shroud. The trees loomed overhead, their branches twisted and gnarled, casting eerie shadows on the path. She followed the winding trail, aware that every step took her further from the safety of the town. Hours turned into an endless night as she trudged deeper into the woods. The woods were silent, save for the crunch of her footsteps on fallen leaves. The stillness was unsettling, but Sarah attributed it to the absence of wildlife. The forest, she reasoned, must be suffering from environmental issues that had caused an ecological imbalance. Setting up camp in a small clearing, Sarah pitched her tent and lit a campfire. She intended to spend the night documenting her surroundings, capturing every sound and shadow on camera. She was determined to expose the myths of Hollow Grove as nothing more than irrational fears. As night descended, Sarah began to hear faint, distant whispers carried on the wind. She dismissed them as the product of her imagination, the rustling leaves and the eerie ambience playing tricks on her mind. Nevertheless, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The hours crawled by, and Sarah's resolve wavered. She recorded herself speaking into the camera, commenting on the lack of supernatural activity. But her words were interrupted by a sudden, high-pitched cry. She froze, the hair on her neck standing on end. It sounded like a child's cry, desperate and plaintive. Against her better judgment, Sarah followed the sound. It led her deeper into the forest, where the trees seemed to close in around her. Her flashlight's beam flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced like phantoms on the tree trunks. The cry grew louder, echoing through the darkness. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin. It stood nestled among the trees, its windows shattered and its wooden walls decayed. Moonlight filtered through the holes in the roof, revealing the interior in patches of ghostly illumination. She approached cautiously, her fear battling with her curiosity. The cries seemed to emanate from within the cabin. Sarah pushed open the creaking door, and as she stepped inside, she felt a rush of icy air that sent shivers down her spine. The interior was filled with discarded toys and shattered furniture. Cobwebs clung to the walls, and the air was thick with the musty scent of decay. But what drew Sarah's attention was a child's drawing, pinned to a rotting wooden board. It depicted a figure with hollow eyes, long limbs, and a wicked grin. The cries continued, leading her deeper into the cabin. She followed the sound to a room at the back, where she found a door ajar. Pushing it open, she gasped at the sight before her. A child, no older than 7, sat huddled in the corner of the room. His eyes were hollow and devoid of emotion, his clothes tattered and stained. He rocked back and forth, his cries now reduced to haunting, wordless moans. "Hey there," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Are you okay? What happened here?" The child's head snapped up, and his hollow eyes met hers. He let out a bone-chilling, high-pitched scream that seemed to pierce through Sarah's very soul. She stumbled back, terror coursing through her veins. As she retreated from the room, the cabin seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. Shadows danced on the walls, and the floorboards creaked as if something unseen was moving. Sarah realized she needed to escape, to leave this place of unspeakable horrors. Outside, the forest had transformed. The once familiar path had vanished, replaced by a labyrinthine tangle of trees and brambles. Panic set in as Sarah realized she was lost, trapped in Hollow Grove with the malevolent force that inhabited it. She ran, branches scratching at her arms and thorns tearing at her clothes. The forest seemed to taunt her, shifting and changing to block her path. She could hear the child's screams echoing in the distance, drawing closer with each passing moment. Hours turned into an endless night, and Sarah's strength waned. She stumbled upon a clearing, her breath ragged, and her body covered in scratches and bruises. In the center of the clearing, she saw a circle of stones, ancient and weathered. As she approached, the stones seemed to resonate with an unnatural energy. In the center of the circle, a gnarled tree stood, its bark twisted into grotesque faces. It was then that Sarah realized the horrifying truth: Hollow Grove was not just haunted, it was sentient. The forest had lured her in, trapping her like a spider's prey in its web. The cries of the child were no longer distant, they were all around her, coming from every direction. The trees themselves seemed to groan and whisper, mocking her futile attempts to escape. With a final, desperate burst of energy, Sarah fled deeper into the forest. She could feel the forest closing in around her, its malevolence squeezing the life out of her. She knew she was running out of time. And then, as if by some cruel twist of fate, she stumbled upon the cabin once more. It stood before her, decrepit and decaying, like a rotting tooth in the mouth of the forest. The child's cries echoed from within, louder and more haunting than ever. Sarah entered the cabin, driven by an inexplicable compulsion. She found herself in the same room where she had discovered the child, but this time, he was gone. In his place stood a figure, tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce her soul. It was the very figure from the child's drawing, the embodiment of the forest's malevolence. It reached out a long, bony hand toward her, and Sarah felt herself being drawn toward it, as if by an invisible force. "No," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I won't become a part of this forest. I won't let you take me." With a surge of determination, Sarah turned and fled from the cabin. The forest seemed to howl in rage, the very trees themselves reaching out to grasp at her. But she refused to be a victim of Hollow Grove. As she emerged from the forest, the first light of dawn pierced the sky. The malevolent presence that had haunted her began to recede, retreating into the depths of Hollow Grove. Sarah stumbled into the town of Blackwood, her body battered and bruised but her spirit unbroken. No one in Blackwood would ever doubt the legends of Hollow Grove again. Sarah's harrowing ordeal served as a chilling reminder that some places are best left unexplored, and that the horrors of the forest are very real, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim to cross their path. Hollow Grove had claimed many souls over the years, and it would continue to do so, its curse unbroken, its malevolence undiminished. Spirit that had plagued the forest for centuries. The cabin now stood as a silent sentinel within the ancient woods, its secrets laid bare, its curse broken, and its once ominous reputation transformed into a testament to the courage of those who had dared to defy the darkness. The forest, no longer haunted by the vengeful guardian, flourished in newfound tranquility, its secrets no longer whispered in the wind.